40 million people were watching when the woman I'd loved for 4 years looked into a camera, smiled like she was accepting an award, and said, "I think it's time I told the truth. Suma and I are over." The studio audience gasped. The host leaned forward, and I was standing backstage, behind a curtain, holding a bouquet of white lilies I'd bought because they were her favorite, watching the monitor mounted to the wall as my entire life was disassembled in front of a live national audience. That was 9:47 p.m. What happened between then and sunrise is the reason I'm telling you this story. Let me back up, but only a little, just enough so you understand what I was doing in that building in the first place. My name is Suma Akiyama. I'm 26. I worked as a sound engineer at a mid-tier production studio in Tokyo. Decent pay. Invisible job. The kind of career where you're in the room with famous people every day and none of them remember your name. Rina Tsujimoto remembered my name. She was a rising actress when we met. Not an A-lister yet, but climbing. She came into Studio C for a voice recording session for an animated film and her mic kept cutting out. I fixed it. She thanked me. She had this way of looking directly at you when she talked, like she was performing sincerity so well it became real. We started dating 3 months later. For 2 years, things were good. Not glamorous on my end. I didn't attend her premieres. I wasn't in her photos. I didn't exist in the public version of her life. She explained it as protection. If people know about you, they'll tear you apart. I'm keeping you safe. I believed that. I wanted to believe it. Because the alternative was admitting I was being hidden, and that felt worse. By year 3, Rina's career exploded. Lead roles, magazine covers, brand deals. She became the kind of famous where strangers cry when they see her in airports, and the gap between her public life and our private one became a canyon. She stopped coming to my apartment. Our dates moved from restaurants to her manager's approved list of private rooms where no one would see us. She started referring to me as a friend from work in interviews. When I asked her about it, she said, "Suma, you don't understand this industry. Be patient." I was patient. 6 months ago, she told me she wanted to go public. I was stunned. She said her team had approved it, that announcing a stable relationship would improve her image. She wanted to do it on her terms, on a show, while in a controlled environment. She gave me a ring, not an engagement ring. She said those were gendered and outdated, but a matching pair of silver bands. She wore hers on camera once. Fans went wild. The speculation started. Her management leaned into it. I thought this meant she was finally proud of me. Tonight, Friday night, live broadcast, the most watched talk show in the country, was supposed to be the official reveal. Rina told me to come to the studio. She told me to wait backstage. She told me there would be a moment during the interview where she'd call me out, introduce me, and we'd sit together on the couch while Japan watched. I bought the lilies on the way. White ones. Her favorite since our first month together. I arrived at the studio at 8:30. Rina was already in hair and makeup. She blew me a kiss from across the room. Her manager, Goda, a man who looked at me the way you'd look at a stain on an expensive sofa, handed me a backstage pass and pointed me to the wings. "Stay behind the curtain until you're called," he said. "Don't come out early. Don't wave. Don't do anything." I stood there. I waited. The show started at 9 o'clock. Rina walked out to thunderous applause. She was radiant. She always was. The host, Matsuda, a veteran who'd been doing this for 20 years, welcomed her, and they started with the easy stuff. Her new film, her training regimen, a funny story about a mishap on set. The audience laughed. I smiled behind my curtain. Mine 40. Matsuda leaned in. "So, Rina-san, there's been a lot of talk online. The silver ring, the mystery man. Are you ready to tell us?" She smiled, that camera-perfect smile. Or she, I think it's time I told the truth. Suma and I are over. The bouquet was still in my hands. I remember the plastic wrapping crinkling because my grip tightened. "We were together for a while," she continued. "He's a sweet person, but I've realized that I was settling for comfort instead of reaching for what I actually deserve. This industry taught me that I need someone who matches my ambition, my energy, my world. Suma is simple, and there's nothing wrong with simple, but simple isn't enough for the life I'm building. Simple." She said it with such tenderness, like she was eulogizing a pet. Matsuda, to his credit, looked uncomfortable. "And you're sharing this now because I believe in honesty, and because I want my fans to know that I'm single, I'm focused. And the next chapter of my life is going to be extraordinary." The audience clapped. Some of them cheered. I stood behind the curtain holding dead flowers and listening to strangers celebrate the end of my relationship. That was 9:47. At 9:52, my phone started vibrating. Texts from friends who were watching, my older sister, a coworker, my mother who typed in all caps, "Suma, what is happening?" I couldn't answer any of them because my hands weren't working properly. I set the bouquet down on an equipment case and tried to breathe. At 9:58, the interview ended. Rena walked off stage to the opposite wing. She didn't come to me. She didn't look in my direction. Goda appeared instead, holding a garment bag and a clipboard. "There's a car waiting at exit B," he said, not making eye contact. "It'll take you home." Rena thinks it's best if you don't contact her for a few days. She'll have her assistant send for any of her things at your apartment. She knew, I said. She planned this. Goda adjusted his glasses. Rena is managing her brand. Try not to take it personally. Don't take it personally. She told 40 million people I was too simple for her and I'm not supposed to take it personally. I didn't take the car. I walked out of the studio through the service entrance into the alley behind the building and stood under a sodium light in the cold March air trying to remember how to be a person. That's when I heard the door open behind me. "You left the flowers inside." I turned. A woman was standing in the service doorway, holding the bouquet of lilies. No, she was tall, almost my height, with dark hair pulled back in a low knot, and a coat that probably cost more than my rent. She had sharp features and the kind of posture that comes from a lifetime of being watched by important people. I didn't recognize her. "They're nice flowers," she said. "Seems wasteful to abandon them over something someone else did." "Who are you?" "I was in the audience." She extended the lilies toward me. "Seat 4A, front row. I watched the whole thing, and I watched you through the gap in the curtain." I took the flowers because I didn't know what else to do. "My name is Shiori Kurahashi." The name didn't register immediately. It took about 3 seconds. Then my brain caught up, and a very cold weight settled in my stomach. Kurahashi, as in Kurahashi Industries, as in the largest private conglomerate in Japan. And as in the family that owned the network this show was broadcasting on. My father owns this building, among other things. I was here tonight because he asked me to attend the taping as a favor to the producers. I said yes, because I had nothing better to do." She paused. "I'm glad I came." I didn't know what to say to that. I was still standing in an alley with a dead relationship and a bouquet handed to me by a stranger whose family could buy every building on this block. "Can I buy you a coffee?" she said. "It's 10 o'clock at night." "I know a place." Here's what you need to understand about what happened next. I didn't go with Shiori because she was beautiful, or because she was rich, or because I wanted to rebound. And I went with her because the alternative was going home to an apartment that still had Rena's shampoo in the shower and staring at a ceiling while my phone exploded with messages from people who'd watched me get discarded on live television. Shiori was offering a door that led somewhere other than that ceiling, so I walked through it. The place was a members-only cafe on the 32nd floor of a Marunouchi high-rise. We were the only customers. The barista knew her by name. She ordered a black coffee. I ordered the same because the menu was in French and I didn't want to guess. She sat across from me and for the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "What do you do?" "Sound engineer." "Do you like it?" "I'm good at it. That's not the same thing, but it's close." Something shifted in her expression, not pity. Something like recognition. "I know what that feels like," she said. "Being competent at something no one cares about unless it breaks." That landed harder than she probably intended. I looked at her, really looked, and something in her face told me she wasn't here out of charity or curiosity or boredom. She was here because something about that broadcast had hit a nerve. "Why were you watching me?" I asked. Yeah, through the curtain." She set her cup down. "Because you were the only honest person in the building. You were standing there with flowers. Real flowers. Not a sponsorship arrangement. Not a publicity prop. You bought someone white lilies because you thought tonight was going to be the best night of your life." She paused. That kind of sincerity is so rare in the world I live in that when I see it, I pay attention. Well, it was 10:40 p.m. At 11:15, my phone rang. It was my sister Maho. I stepped away and answered. "Suma, are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm fine. I'm at a cafe." "The internet is going insane. Rena's fans are dragging you. Someone found your work profile. There are memes, Suma, already." I closed my eyes. "Some of them are saying you were clingy, that you held her back. There's a clip going around from Rena's manager's social media, an old photo from a company event where you're in the background, and someone circled you and wrote, 'The dead weight.' It's trending." Goda. He'd taken that photo at a rap party last year and posted it casually. I was in the corner of the frame holding a cable roll. Now that image was being weaponized. Suma, come home. Stay off the internet. Let this blow over. It's not going to blow over, Maho. She said it on live TV. Then we'll deal with it, but come home. I hung up. I walked back to the table. Shiori was reading something on her phone, and when she saw my face, she put it down immediately. It's already spreading, I said. I know, I just read it. Her fans are, I know what they're doing. Her voice was calm, but her jaw was tight. Rena's team is feeding it. This isn't organic. The clip from her manager, the narrative about you being ordinary, this is a post-broadcast media strategy. They planned the breakup and the aftermath. I sat down slowly. How do you know that? Because my family owns the network. I've seen how these campaigns are built. This isn't a breakup, Suma. It's a product launch. She's rebranding herself as the woman who chose ambition over comfort, and you're the before photo. Baitaya. The coffee tasted like nothing. It was 11:30 p.m. Shiori said, I need to tell you something, and I want you to hear it before the next 3 hours happen. What happens in the next 3 hours? That depends on you. She folded her hands on the table. I came tonight because my father asked me to, but I stayed because of what I saw. And what I saw is someone who just lost everything in public and didn't rage, didn't cause a scene, didn't do anything except stand in an alley holding flowers. That tells me more about a person than any interview or background check. She reached into her coat and placed something on the table between us. A business card, but not a normal one. It was heavy, metallic, with a single phone number embossed on it. My family has a foundation, she said. We fund creative talent, musicians, engineers, visual artists, sound designers. It's a 3-year residency with full funding, studio access, and no public obligations. I chair the selection committee. Applications closed 2 months ago. She pushed the card forward. I'm reopening one slot. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a future that has nothing to do with Rina Tsujimoto. Because you feel sorry for me. No. Her eyes were steady, unblinking. Because I've listened to your work. That stopped me cold. You did the sound engineering for the animated film Crossing the Shallow Sea. You mixed the score for the indie game Echoes of Pale Light. And you remastered the audio for the Kurahashi Foundation's documentary on traditional textile artisans in Kyoto last year. That project came through our production office. Your name was on the credits. Yeah, I looked you up then. That was 8 months ago. Yes. You've known who I was for 8 months? I've known your work for 8 months. I didn't know you until tonight. It was midnight. My phone was still buzzing. The trending hashtag had shifted. There were now 2 camps, one attacking me, one defending me. A few people had found Rina's old interviews where she talked about valuing real connections and staying grounded. The hypocrisy was visible, but her team was spinning fast. Goda had released a statement calling me a respectful chapter in Rina's journey and wishing me peace and privacy, which was code for shut up and disappear quietly. Shiori watched me reading all of this. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. In about 2 hours, a tabloid is going to publish a story. I know, because the editor contacted my father's office for comment this evening. She paused. The story will claim that Rina's breakup was strategically timed to coincide with a new endorsement deal with a luxury brand. The deal required her to be publicly single. The contract was signed 3 weeks ago, before she gave you the ring, before she told you to come to the studio tonight. I put the phone down. She signed a deal that required her to be single, I said slowly. And then she brought me to the broadcast to dump me as content. The ring, the build-up, the public mystery, the reveal, all of it was engineered to generate maximum engagement for the breakup. Your presence backstage wasn't a reunion. It was a prop. The producers knew. Her manager knew. The host was briefed. I thought about Goda handing me the backstage pass. No, don't come out early, don't wave, don't do anything. He wasn't managing my entrance. He was making sure the prop stayed in place until the scene was over. How long have you known this? I asked Yoaki. My father's office received the tabloid inquiry at 7 this evening. I read it at 7:30. The taping started at 9. You were in the audience knowing this was going to happen. Yes. And you didn't warn me. I didn't know you. I didn't know if the story was true, and I didn't know what kind of person you were until I watched you stand behind that curtain and not break. That was honest, brutally, uncomfortably honest. She could have lied, could have said she found out after, could have softened it. She didn't. It was 12:45 a.m. I stood up. I walked to the window. Tokyo spread out below in a grid of light. And somewhere in that grid, Rina was probably in a car, checking engagement metrics, watching the numbers climb, calculating how much my humiliation was worth in brand value. And somewhere in that same grid, my mother was probably awake, worried. My sister was probably furious. My coworkers would see the memes by morning. If I accept the residency, I said, not turning from the window, what does that look like from the outside? Shiori was quiet for a moment. From the outside, it looks like the Kurahashi Foundation identified a talented sound engineer and offered him a position. Nothing more. Your name appears on our roster. Your work speaks for itself. Rina's narrative dies because you're not a rejected nobody. You're a professional who was already being recruited before tonight happened. And from the inside? From the inside, you spend 3 years making the best work of your life with resources most engineers never get access to, surrounded by people who understand what it means to create something real. She paused. No cameras, no audiences, no one performing sincerity at you, just the work. I turned back. She was still sitting at the table, hands folded, watching me with an expression that wasn't pity and wasn't calculation. It was patience. The particular patience of someone who has seen people make bad decisions under pressure and is determined not to be the reason this one goes wrong. There's one more thing, she said. Of course there is. The tabloid story goes live at 6 a.m. When it does, every outlet in the country is going to want your side. Rina's team is already preparing a counter-narrative. If you're silent, they'll write the story for you. Simple man, amicable split, moved on gracefully. If you speak, they'll call you bitter. Either way, by tomorrow afternoon, the public version of who you are will be locked in. So what's the alternative? She stood, walked to where I was standing. Up close, she was taller than I'd realized, and her eyes had a clarity that made me feel like I was being seen at a frequency most people don't bother tuning into. Come to the Foundation's gala tomorrow night. It's at the Imperial Hotel. 300 guests, industry leaders, artists, press. I'll introduce you as our newest resident. You won't speak to any reporter about Rina. You won't address the breakup. You'll simply exist in a context that contradicts everything she said about you tonight. That's not neutrality. That's a statement. Yes, it is. Yeah. And what does it look like that the Kurahashi heiress personally invited the man who just got dumped on national television? For the first time, Shiori smiled. Small, controlled, but real. It looks like I have good taste. It was 1:30 a.m. I sat back down. I picked up the metallic card. I turned it over in my fingers. One phone number, no name, no title, just a door. Why are you doing this, I said. The real reason. She sat down across from me again, and for the first time, something in her composure shifted. Not a crack, more like a window opening an inch. Because 3 years ago, I was engaged to a man my father approved of. He was perfect on paper, perfect at events, perfect in photographs, and behind closed doors, he made me feel like I was an attachment to his resume. She paused. I ended it, quietly, no broadcast, no strategy. I just left, and I spent the next 2 years wondering if I'd made the right choice, because everyone around me acted like I'd thrown away something valuable. She looked at the card in my hands. I know what it feels like to be someone's prop, and I know what it looks like when someone is being turned into one in real time. I couldn't stop what happened to you tonight, but I can make sure the story doesn't end the way they wrote it. It was 2 a.m. I called my sister. Maho, I need you to listen. I told her everything, the brand deal, the engineered breakup, the foundation offer, the gala. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Suma, are you sure this woman isn't just using you too? Different packaging, same game? Fair question. I'd thought about it. I don't know, I said. Well, but the difference is, she told me the truth before I made any decision. She told me what she knew, when she knew it, and what it means. Rina never did that, not once in 4 years. Maho was quiet again, then, go to the gala, wear the blue suit, and Suma, don't you dare apologize for anything. It was 3 a.m. Shiori had a car take me home. The apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Rina's shampoo in the shower, a photo of us on the bookshelf, the silver ring sitting on the kitchen counter where I'd left it before heading to the studio. I picked it up, turned it over. It was light. Cheap, actually. I'd never looked closely enough to realize that the matching silver bands she'd made such a show of were plated zinc. Even the symbol of our relationship was a prop. I put it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. Throwing it away would have been dramatic, and I was done being part of someone else's drama. At 4 a.m., I sat on the floor of my apartment with my laptop and pulled up every project I'd worked on in the last 3 years. The film, the game, the documentary, a dozen smaller jobs, podcasts, radio spots, indie animations. I listened to my own work for the first time in months. Not critically, not professionally. I just listened. It was good, not perfect, but real. The kind of work that doesn't announce itself. It just holds the world of the story together so seamlessly that no one notices it's there. Invisible work. Essential work. At 5 a.m., the sky started to lighten. I made coffee. I opened my phone. The tabloid story had leaked early. It was everywhere. Said the headline, Rina Tsujimoto's breakup strategically timed for brand deal. Fiancée used as on-air content. The engagement deal, the pre-planned narrative, Goda's involvement, all of it confirmed on the record. Rina's team was already in crisis mode. A statement from her publicist called the article a misrepresentation of personal decisions. Goda's social media went private. The hashtag had flipped. The same people who'd been attacking me 6 hours ago were now calling Rina calculating. The cycle was moving fast, and for the first time, it was moving in a direction that didn't require me to do anything. At 5:30 a.m., a message from Shiori. The gala starts at 7 p.m. A car will be at your address at 6:15. No pressure, but the seat is yours if you want it. I stood at the window. The sun was coming up over the Sumida River, and I could see the edge of the broadcast tower where, 10 hours ago, I'd been standing behind a curtain holding flowers for a woman who'd already signed the contract to leave me. I thought about Rina. Not with anger. Not yet. Anger would come later, probably. Right now, all I felt was the strange, hollow clarity that comes after you've been awake all night and the adrenaline has burned off and what's left is just the truth, sitting in the middle of your chest like a stone. She never loved me, not the way I needed, not the way I deserved. She loved what I represented at Amarome, the ordinary, grounded, real counterweight to her extraordinary life. I was a character in her story, the sweet, simple boyfriend who proved she was still down to earth. And when that character stopped being useful, she wrote him out. I picked up my phone. I typed a reply to Shiori. I'll be ready at 6:15. Then I added, thank you for the flowers. Her response came in 30 seconds. You bought them. I just made sure they didn't go to waste. At 6 a.m., I showered. I put on the blue suit, the one Maho told me to wear, the one I'd bought with my own money for my cousin's wedding, the one Rina had once said made me look like a mid-level manager at a car dealership. It fit fine. I looked fine. I looked like myself. At 6:15, the car arrived. Black, quiet. The driver nodded and opened the door. I didn't look back at the apartment. I didn't check the trending hashtags. I didn't send Rina a message or delete her photos or make a post or do any of the things the internet was probably expecting me to do. I got in the car. I had the metallic card in my jacket pocket. I had the name of a woman who'd listened to my work before she ever learned my name. I had a gala to attend, a residency to accept, and a career to build that had nothing to do with anyone else's brand strategy. The sun was fully up now. March light, cold and clean, cutting through the windshield as the car pulled into traffic. 40 million people had watched me get discarded. Tonight, 300 people would watch me arrive on my own terms. And somewhere between those two numbers, I'd stopped being Rina Tsujimoto's prop and started being Suma Akiyama. That was enough. For now, that was everything.